Hello. Someone commented on essentially, I'm not going to share who this person was, asking how can they have something to talk about with an INFJ. And I figured this would be a topic that could serve many people, not just anyone that is in a relationship with or starting a relationship with an INFJ. What makes a good conversationalist doesn't really boil down to really what you bring to the table. So go ahead and start by reading what I have here. If you perceive yourself as not having anything interesting to say, which I doubt, because everybody has something interesting to share with others, even if it's a brief fun fact, I would perhaps then ask, what are your listening skills like? How well do you listen? Because maybe you can hone in on that to make up for your lack of things to talk about. You'd be surprised how many meaningful relationships you can develop just by offering a sincere listening ear. In my opinion, a good conversationalist, more than anything, knows how to listen. And this is a rare skill because oftentimes people's pride gets in the way as their intellect grows. And in time, they may develop an arrogance that will get in the way of having a good conversation with somebody due to their lack of intellectual humility, and thus they become socially retarded, so to speak. If there's anything I personally really appreciate is someone that is willing to give me their undivided attention, their ability to truly listen when I'm sharing something that I find important, meaningful, valuable to me. This form of listening, as some of you probably already know, is termed as active listening, which means, this is my definition for it, which means that you're listening because you're truly interested in finding out more about what they're sharing, instead of listening because you want to prove how right you are. And so when someone listens because they're genuinely curious, interested, and humble, it will reflect naturally in their body language, their facial expressions, their tone of voice, and the chosen words. My former boss once mentioned in a sales meeting that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, so that we can hear twice as much as we speak. A lot of people don't mind talking about themselves. They don't mind sharing what happened to them that day. They certainly don't mind sharing their life accomplishments, what their future aspirations are. Or in the case of INFJs, we really enjoy talking about ideas and our thoughts. See, when we share it with that other person, we don't really need for that other person to know much about what we're talking about. We know that a lot of what we say is really, it's like we have Wernicke's aphasia. We're speaking, and none of it makes sense to the other person. And a lot of the times it doesn't even make sense to us. So we're really understanding when the other person kind of struggles a little bit to grasp it. If we can see that you're at least trying to understand what we're sharing with you through listening, we can pick up on that. We can see that, okay, well, this person at least is really trying. We can recognize it whenever it's present. And thus we can also recognize it when it's fabricated. But here's the thing with INFJs though. We enjoy sharing what's in our minds, but we also don't enjoy being in the spotlight for too long. At one point, you're going to have to speak up and share your perspective, like a way of us gauging either how much you've understood of our own nonsense, but also how much you were able to really just do a recap even of what we've already shared. If you cannot bring something additional to the table based on what they've already been sharing with you, what you can do, actually doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't even have to be with an INFJ. It boils down to speaking in terms the other person finds interesting, and you can start by asking questions that you suspect the other person will enjoy answering. And the way you do this goes back to actively listening when the other person was spilling everything to you. Assuming you did this right, you should have enough ammunition in your pocket for a good conversation for that evening. You don't need them to say too much for you to recognize what they value or what they find interesting and fun. Let's say they say something very basic. They went to the grocery store. When they got home, they read some books, and then maybe after that they did some yard work that they had been postponing for a very long time. Okay, that's it. That's all you need. Okay, so now you know that they went to the grocery store. You can go into that. You know that they went back home. They got some reading done. You can also start with that, or you can also get into the whole yard work that they mentioned that they did also, that they had been postponing. maybe you don't want to ask about why had they been postponing it. That's probably going to lead you down a path that maybe they don't want to reveal just yet. So start with something that's a little bit more on the surface that you know would be safe to start. Books, that's a great one to start with. Oh, really? You like to read? What sort of books do you like to read? Well, you know, I like romantic novels. What's your favorite story that you've read so far when it comes to romantic novels? I read this one where this woman she went to another country and she met this soldier, bumped into these monkeys, and then the monkey, and then, so they tell you this whole story. And then you can just ask more and more about that. No way. Would you ever do something like that? Is that so crazy? No, I would never do something like that. No, my parents would kill me. Tell me about your parents. What are they like? So you see, you can just keep going down and asking more and more and more. Put a little bit of enthusiasm into it, a little bit. You don't want to just say, "Oh, you like to read?" No, I mean, add some life to the words as well, because people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And a way that you can also really make it seem that you really care is based on the tone of voice, putting some passion into it. You don't just want to be in a vegetative state and just simply say the words you think they're going to want to listen. We're not so mechanical like that. You're going to have to start developing that for sure, because we want to be able to feel if the questions that you're asking us are just a means to getting somewhere. In other words, you're just really wanting to get in bed with that person, and that's the only reason you're showing interest in what they're telling you. No, it has to appear genuine. Sincerity is backed up by tonality. Now, of course, that can also be fabricated, but that's another conversation. And little by little, that thread will take you down this path. This is going to allow you to ask good and open-ended questions. Open-ended questions meaning questions that call for a story and not just a simple yes or no. To conclude, if you want to learn to be a good conversationalist with anybody, it begins by paying close attention to what they're telling you and just go from there. So I hope that helps.